Hey there, welcome to Beauty and the Pom podcast. I'm Kiani Mills.
And I'm Andy Reid.
Two friends who have a very similar set of values, but who have taken very different life paths to end up in similar situations.
We are also business owners, parents, property enthusiasts, and bloody short on time. So we bring you this podcast to shine a light on humanising business.
Because look, let's face it, business is life, and life is business.
Beauty and the Pom podcast. We're back again. Kiani looking summery, bright, breezy, all the rest of it. Not that you can see it, gang, obviously with us being a podcast. But if you've seen it on YouTube, you'll certainly know what I'm going on about. Ki, how are you going?
I am great. Sunshine in the background. I've even got short sleeve top on. It's not a bad place to be in the very, very few weeks we are into spring.
Well, speak for yourself. Being down in Melbourne, I've still got about 4 layers on and all the rest of it. So depending on where you are in Australia or nay, around the world, hope everything is going well. Now, Kiani, this episode is very much in your wheelhouse. It really, really is. We're talking about vibe, attracting tribes, and how the energy that you put out, it's what you tend to get back from the world. Why is this something that is so important to you, firstly?
Oh, it's exciting. And I think I said to you as soon as I jumped on, I was like, I'm so excited for today because I'm in such a good mood. So hopefully you can feel my energy through this speaker. But I think the reason why this is so important to me, taking it down a notch, is because I was so disillusioned and so ignorant to the way that my energy and my behavior impacted others. And that was purely because I was so self-absorbed and living in this world where I really thought that no one would ever know, or I was so egocentric on my emotions and what was going on for me and how I was doing, and kind of just surviving through my life, that I had no idea about the energy that I was putting out. And I think I mentioned in an earlier episode around a dear friend of mine who met me for the first time and said, all right, I thought you were a bitch. He was a massive catalyst to this. And I think there's a couple of things which we're going to go through it in this episode. But I think that this one is really important because not enough do we consider how our actions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, and then for our energy impacts another person.
You're absolutely right. From my point of view, I'm thinking about it more from the other side of things, right? When, the whole theory or the whole sort of, what's the word? The whole thing of whinging Pom, right? That whole sort of lexicon in Australia that Poms generally tend to whinge a lot. I didn't know that was a thing until I came over and moved over to this country. And part of what that taught me was, now you've got to be really careful about who you have around you, right? And I think the right to choose who you have around you needs to be made way more aware for a lot more people, particularly if you're in business, because as we both know, Kiani, you can really change the direction of your business one way or another, depending on who's around you at that time, particularly if you have really critical decisions to make, right? It's really, really important. Now, team, as you may have already come to understand, Kiani is a bit of a queen when it comes to things like networking and whatnot. And so when she goes into these rooms, when she goes into these networking rooms, I think, Kiani, one of the big things that you have is a massive, massive strength is being able to pick up on energy and all that sort of stuff and really pay attention to and work the room and work to that group according to the energy that you're picking up and so on and so forth. You mentioned there, though, that you had to go through a journey of becoming way more aware as to the energy that you were putting out there yourself. And I really want to dig into that a little bit because, we've not gone deep into our personal stories, and we will do, gang, over the course of the journey as you get to know us, as we get to know you as our listeners. But it's safe to say, Kiani, for those of you that that aren't 100% aware as to your own personal trip up to when you found all this out, you have done a hell of a lot of surviving over your time, right? So do you reckon that when it comes to this whole topic, before we go into the nuts and bolts of it, do you reckon that we've got to take a step back and have a look at what's gone on up to this stage to try and ascertain how and why we put the energy out?
Yeah. Oh, look, you've hit the nail on the head. The only way that you can be aware of what you're putting out is to be aware of what is inside. And there are a lot of times when, the blinkers come on and we go, oh, life's good, life's good, life's good, life's good. And I'll pretend everything's good. And if you're like struggling on the inside, it will show. And, there's a couple of things in that. I think taking a real bird's eye view of your life and your traumas and your situations that have gotten you to the point that you are, for me, that was a really critical process to go through to make sure that, number one, I was taking full responsibility for my actions in there, but understanding that I wasn't, and I knew that I could fall into that victim mentality so easily. But when we're coming from a place of that victim mentality, we're coming from a place of lack. We're coming from a place of scarcity. So what is it that we're putting out? And what are we attracting? Because like attracts like. So when you're able to have a bit of a look over it, and for me, the process went a little bit more about pain and healing to get through a lot of those things. And then on the other side, I was able to really have a little bit more of a, oh, wow. From that, I was then able to identify this, or, that abusive relationship gave me, coming through the other side of it, made me understand that I don't deserve that. And that is not okay. It taught me to take responsibility. It taught me to step up. It taught me that, yes, of course, you are lovable. You can do it. You are worthy. So many brilliant things came from that, which makes me who I am today. Maybe I might have gotten there without that. Who knows? But that's not my journey. So I had to go through that in order to get to that place. And then from that place, it doesn't necessarily mean that the only vibe I am willing to partake in, or the only tribe that I attract, must be of a healed nature or a, somewhat. It's not like I go straight for the people that seem to have their shit together. That's not what it is. Not at all. It's not like I don't know, like this X-ray vision that I've got that I can look around a room and be like, all right, who's got, who's closer to the end of getting everything in life they want? It's not like that at all. It's sometimes in us, it is the most, what we consider ourselves to be, the most broken people that put across the most beautiful vibes. It's just they haven't been in a relationship or in a situation where they've been given permission to be their true, authentic selves.
Oh, wow. I reckon if you could bottle that up, that's the takeaway from today's lesson, gang. So, gang, if you wanted to just turn off and skip to the next episode, you're more than welcome to.
Please don't. There's more.
Don't, absolutely do not. But I reckon that in itself is a tremendous point that you make there. I find all that sort of stuff fascinating, and I think there is such a thing as too much of the same energy as well, right? I think your energies need to complement each other, especially from a relationship point of view. When it comes to the business side of things, I think it's really, really critical that you don't just, and we talked about it when it came to hiring and whatnot, you don't want to hire another one of yourself, right? That's, in my instance, it would be, loud and all the rest of it, because
whinging,
it'd just be a load of headaches, right? It'd just be a load of headaches. The Panadol bill would go through the roof. What I think it's really, really interesting that, you can come from a place of scarcity if you've had that environment that makes you feel that that's what you need to have in order to survive. And those sorts of words, right? Survival and scarcity and lack and all those sorts of things. But I really want to talk to you more specifically when it comes to working out your circle of influence, and really how you navigate the pieces of your puzzle and how you put them together, and when you know it's the right time to perhaps take out one of those bits, right? So I found this really cool quote from Mark Twain, and it says, keep away from people who try to belittle your ambitions. Small people always do that, but the really great make you feel that too. That may make you feel that you too can become great. Keep away from people who belittle your ambitions. Small people always do that, but the really great make you feel that you too can become great. Yeah. I think that's fab, and there's all sorts of different quotes from all sorts of different people, like Jimmy Rohn, who I'm a big fan of. He says you are the sum of the 5 people around you, and what have you. There's loads of those ones, right? And I'm sure a whole bunch of you that are listening to this will have stumbled across that sort of stuff. But Kiani, you've gone through a whole heap of evolutions and iterations of yourself over the journey from a business point of view and beyond. How right now, if we're to just come to present day for a second, and then we might go backwards. Right now, have you got some sort of like a grayscale? Have you got some sort of internal barometer as to whether you feel that someone is not worthy or worth having in your circle? Because it's not like you're just an absolute bitch who goes, well, get fucked. I don't want you. But what sort of internal barometer have you got, or have you got an external barometer when it comes to business side of things?
I think it's got to be both. There's the biggest thing I've learned is trust your gut, and to be able to trust your gut, you need to know yourself pretty well. So trusting the gut for me at the moment is really, really important. And trust in myself. I know too that the minute I stop trusting myself and start to blame myself, I then don't follow the right path, and pretty quickly in a little while I'll get smacked in the face with a reality wake-up call that goes, Kiani, you didn't listen. No, it doesn't make you feel good. That's not good. Business sense, external, absolutely. But it's more of it doesn't matter how much money you make, it doesn't matter where you live, what you do for a job, none of those superficial things matter. So I think that's probably a first step, is get rid of the superficial judgment of others. From a business sense, it comes down to my values and my non-negotiables. So it is, do we have similar values? Are we here for the best interest of another party? Because no one in business should be turning around and saying the only reason I'm in business is for me, because you are very much going to struggle. It is about the client. It is always about the client, and then is it about the referral partner or that third party involved? But for me now, the biggest thing has been through my journey of really being able to solidify my non-negotiables. So in the minute those non-negotiables are tried, tested, or overstepped, then I definitely know that person is not. And look, I don't have enemies. I mean, there's people out there that hate me, I'm sure of it. I do not carry hate for anybody. And therefore, I don't believe that relationships need to end on a sour note. Just because we have different values doesn't mean you're a bad person or I'm a bad person. It means that our values are not aligned. And that means that moving forwards, we cannot continue in a cohesive nature because you want to go this way and I want to go this way. So it doesn't have to be any kind of negativity around it. And look, I mean, in all honesty, you will find that people will self-select out before you naturally have to select them out. People get, and this is where the vibe part comes into it, attracting your tribe and where your energy goes. It's really important because as I said, like attract lights, you are attracted to people who are on a similar vibrational level to you in some way, shape or form. We are all different, but you tend to attract people who have some form of a quality that either is safe to you or is familiar to you. So, and again, this comes back to what's that word? Familiarity.
Spot on.
There we go. Similar values. So they're things that we find. So for me, it is a little bit more woo-woo and gut-checked and sense-checked as opposed to facts. I think once upon a time, was a person who would say yes to anyone and to anything just so that people would like me. That's evolved slightly now, and we're now in a phase where I am who I am and I will not change that. And I respect you for who you are, and I do not expect you to change that either.
Couple of things on that. First, I want to ask you, what's one of your non-negotiables? Give us an example of what one of your non-negotiables.
Lying.
But don't you normally find that out after the event?
Yes, you do. Yep. And it tends to be that people will self-select out or select out after something happens. It doesn't normally happen, I guess, before that. So yeah, lying, like trust for me is a big one. Doing what you say you're going to do, it's massive. Even if it is, everyone in life makes mistakes or says, yeah, I'll call you at 5 and then doesn't call you at 5 and life happens, things like that. But it's more, it's fundamental things, especially when it comes to business. Business is really important. And growing up in the B&I world, really, for me, I took it very seriously in a sense that, the way that you behave in a room full of people is a direct reflection on the way that you behave in your business. So if I turn up to a B&I meeting or something like that and there is someone that is on their phone the entire time or turns up late, or not that I'm that judgy, but it will be a consideration that is taken, because if I give you a referral, are you going to respect that referral and give it the attention that it needs? Or are you going to be too busy? And if you are too busy, that's totally fine, but set me straight. This is when I'll be able to call them, or I'm just dealing with X, Y, and Z. And, again, there's a caveat on that shit happens and life's a bitch, but where possible, we do try our best to maintain appearances and maintain our values to the best of our ability.
I like that, and BNI, for those of you that don't know, is one of the networking business networking initiatives that one's around the world. There's all sorts of different ones, right, that you can go to and be a part of, and there might be a couple of people that might have just had that reaction of, gee, she's a bit judgmental, right? I can be late sometimes and blah 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 blah. It's not that that's what Kiani is saying. What she's saying is that subconsciously we're communicating our energy to everyone and anyone, and as we've discussed on numerous occasions, 93% of how we communicate is done everything except through what is said, right? And a lot of that comes down to your energy, gang. I'm sure that a whole bunch of you will have experienced this at some point in your life, where someone says hello to you and you get the shivers, you get like a little or a little bit of vomit comes up in your mouth or something along those lines, right? And conversely, there might be some people that you meet and you get a massive whack of warmth, and you, for whatever reason, and you're not sure why, they might just feel like, you might just go, shit, they're really, really cool. So I think that we really need to make a distinction around that. But from a business side of things, you've got to understand that all of that contributes towards the vibe that you are putting out there. If you're trying to be Captain Professional, but for example, you look like a bag of crap, right? Doesn't matter how nice we are as human beings, as business people, there will subconsciously or consciously be a judgment on that, because they're looking to see from a business relationship point of view, they're looking to see how you are going to represent their reputation, correct, not your own. It's how you're going to represent their reputation. So if they can't trust you with that, you're not likely to have them form as part of your tribe. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out, which is a really good point, is that you talked about it not necessarily being superficial, right? And I was listening to a TED talk with Simon. Was it TED talk? No, it was just another talk of Simon Sinek. So when he was talking about how he went and spent some time with the Marines, and he was asking them, what constitutes a good player in that team, right? In their squadron, and they said that essentially, you've got the ones that are incredible, like they are just unbelievable, like specimens, physical, everything, super sharp, win all the time. But they are arseholes, right? They are one out, one only, me, myself, and I type players. And then you've got the absolutely useless pricks down the other end. But then you've got these ones that they are consistently good performers. They really want to be a part of the crew, and they want to do well. And to a greater extent, they are good at what they do. And you're much more likely to take on those guys as opposed to the elite arseholes, basically. Now, from a business point of view, the superficial part of you would be looking at facts and figures, i.e. sales figures. And in a real estate sense, we often refer to them as £100 gorillas, right? Where their numbers suggest that they are it and a bit. But you get them into your business, and the vibe that they are putting out there is very much not one that would be constructive towards your business or your organization as a whole. Yes, they will bring you some superficial figures, but you don't know the damage that they could be causing outside of that, based on the vibe that they're putting out there and the energy that they're putting into your business. I think that's really, really important to point out.
And you're right, because those kinds of people, when you're driven by your ego and you're driven by the need to serve yourself, that does come across as, it can be quite abrupt or abrasive, or yes, it's getting the job done, and yes, sometimes that's exactly what clients want. But when you're in business and you're looking to want to work with people, you're wanting it to be a mutual exchange of energy backwards and forwards. And if someone goes into it solely for the purpose of feeding their ego, it's very likely that they're not going to be great at playing with others. Or the minute something starts to go south, instead of joining forces and coming together to create a solution and get an outcome, they're more likely to protect themselves and batten down the hatches and do at anything cost. So I think, what Andy's talking about is those people that when you're leading from a place of connection, where you're wanting to connect with people and bring people together, and the end result isn't so much about you, it's about the end result for the client or the referral partner or a collective, it just comes with a really different feel to it, and you're right, you can feel it kind of straight away. There's certain people that you just naturally will not gel with, and there's nothing wrong with that. We don't need to be friends with everybody. And this brings me to the next section.
Yes, which is all around the pond that you're in and the room that you are not.
And you brought it up perfectly before. Whether it's the sum or the average, you are the average of the 5 people closest to you. If you sit there right now, and I tend to do personal and business separate. Mind you, my personal and my business worlds are connected, because I am truly friends with everyone that I do business with, and I would let them sleep in my house if they needed. Like, I wouldn't do one for that I wouldn't do for another. But I do find it a little bit easier, because we do have personal lives and we do have business lives, that for that 5, we have a think about who are the 5 people most closest to us, and how is that reflecting me and where I am right now and where I want to be. And it doesn't necessarily mean you cut off the high school friends or whatever it might be. And I actually had this conversation the other day with a dear friend of mine who is very successful in business, and he's a bloody big ball of love, that human. And he just said to me, he's like, look, Kiani, I went to an event with all of my high school friends, and I sat back and I just observed. And most of this work that we're talking about, especially I know that what I've done, it's about observing, no judgment, just paying attention, almost taking a back seat to your own mind, a back seat to your own life, and just observing what's going on in others and everything. But he said, look, I was just kind of sitting there at this event and I was watching them all, and some of the things, and I love them to death, there's no way they're going to be gone, but some of the things that they were saying and they were doing, I kind of went, oh, I don't know if that really resonates with me anymore. I don't know if I actually believe, and oh, that's not okay. You don't say those things. Like, there were some real clear things that he said, I'd never noticed it before, because I'm always there to be with my mates, and comes back that, high school camaraderie, and you all of a sudden turn back into a young lad, and, whatever it might be. But he said, no, I literally sat back and I went, wow, I'm not sure of that. And then he said the more that he followed the conversations, the more he realized too that, oh, we're having very different conversations. What he's talking about is one thing and what they're talking about is another. And when you start observing those kinds of things and where your relationships may not be the same as they used to be, you will naturally start to gravitate towards people who do have conversations of a different nature that you are needing to have, and it just will happen naturally. But again, it doesn't mean we get rid of them at all. We don't shun people, and lifelong friendships are absolutely important and valued. But it does just mean sometimes we're going to pick up the phone and call someone else to seek the answer or get the advice that we're looking for. So it's not one or the other.
No, absolutely not. Ultimately, some of those older energies are amazing anchors to bring us back to center in terms of who we are as individuals, right? I think that's really important. Like, I have a group of mates on my WhatsApp, right, and they're all in England, and yes, on more than one occasion, they are miserable as sin at times. Bless them, I love them all to bits, and they love a good whinge. But at the end of the day, they still, they can bring us back to who we are in essence, right? And I think that's really important to know. I want to know though, Kiani, you mentioned that you make that distinction between personal and business, right? And I kind of want to relate this to the ambitious side of you as well, to a degree. I want to make this connection in terms of where you want to get to as a professional, right? Or, where you want to get to as a business or as a leader or whatever it is that you want to achieve. When have you felt, or has there been a moment where you have been in a situation, be it personal or professional, where it's just whacked you, where you've gone, you know what? I think I need to switch up here. I think I'm ready to switch up my circle of influence a touch here, because I think many of us go through it without really recognizing that we need to make those alterations. I won't say complete wholesale changes, because it's not like you just piss off whoever you've just been dealing with to go and deal with some other people, right? You can't just swap.
There's no upgrades. There's no upgrade button. Doesn't work like that.
Yes. But wait, like, has there been a situation or a time in your life where you've gone, you know what, I feel that I do need to maybe step up in terms of where I want to be and align with those people that will help me get to that sort of level, whether it's energy or skill set or whatever. What has been a situation where that's been the case for you?
I'll give you one example that happened quite early on in my business life, and it was even before kind of, having the evolutions that I've had recently. And then I'll give you another example of like more recently. But when I was first starting out this current KLM conveyancing, I remember I had this young real estate agent who I became friends with, and he goes like, all right, I'll give you all my conveyancing clients, just pay me a referral fee. I'm like, yep, no worries, I'll pay you for a referral fee every single client. Perfect. So he'd send me maybe one client, 2 clients a month, and which was great. I was very, very grateful and very, very thankful. And then also, as well as sending me clients, I think maybe every week I'd get a phone call from him just going, hey, do you have any clients that want to sell? Do you have any clients that want to sell? I'm like, look, as soon as I get one, I'll send it across. They obviously come to us to get the contract done, and normally that is from an agent. So when I get the rare occasion that a client comes back to me, and I hadn't been in business long enough to get repeat clients yet, so I didn't even have like now it's very different, but back then I didn't have repeat clients coming back again, and no one really knew my network, so they weren't asking me for referrals, and it was a very new time of business. Anyway, it got to a point where the market got really quiet, and he hadn't sent me a client in ages, which was fine. There's no expectations. And then he obviously started to get desperate, and he would call me every single day, and he'd be like, Kiani, find me a client. Kiani, find me a client. Kiani, find me a client. And I was like, yep, I'll try, I'm looking, blah, blah, blah. And then a couple of weeks went by, and I was like, you know what? So I answered the phone. I knew exactly what I was going to say. I was like, right, question. When I do find you this client, what do I get? He goes, oh no, we don't give referral fees. And I was like, you know what? I don't ask for referral fees, and I would never do that because I value a relationship way more than referral fees. But I really don't appreciate being called every single day, sometimes twice a day, to find you a client. He's like, but I've been giving you clients. And I said, I understand that, and I've been giving you referral fees. But this relationship now, we are not on the same page anymore, because I would love for people to use my service because they trust me, because they know they're going to get it fast, they know it's going to be right, and they know their clients are going to love me over having to part with $200 a file. And at that time, mate, I was little. $200 a file was a lot of money. A lot of money. For sure. And I was like, okay, that was my first instance where I was bold enough to stand up and go, no, you know what? not that I'd take the referral fee from you anyway, but the fact that you're going out of your way all day to bug me for this and there's absolutely no benefit in it for me. I mean, yes, I get the conveyancing, which is lovely, but then I'd have to give them $200.
That's a very, very obvious example, right? That's a really obvious. But the thing is, it's one of those ones that, especially if you are just starting out in business, as Kiani was, if you're a sole trader who really, really values those sorts of relationships and what have you, there may well come a time where you need to perhaps review said relationship. Or if you are the person that is looking to instigate those types of relationships, I think it's really wise for you to have it in your mind, at least internally, that at some stage that relationship is going to need to evolve at some point. And you're going to need to perhaps look at how you can bring either a different level of influence or a different level of interaction with the business that you're looking to keep, or whether you know that it's likely to get to a point where, bless them, from a business relationship point of view, they might not have the capacity to help you on your journey if you've grown or, if you've really expanded the empire or whatnot, right? So it's really important. Yeah. Now, what's your more recent one?
Just quickly on the back of that really, though, gave me an ability to connect with people from the very outset at a very different level, because I would say I really want to work with people who value the service that we're providing. I will answer your phone call every time. I will get you a contract within 24 hours and I will service the hell out of that client. You want those three things, because I realized that the money was just transactional. And the minute I said that to him, he was off with another conveyancer. That's not a relationship.
100%. In fact, and on that, the conveyancer that I used to use two, and they were the only two that didn't dish out referral fees. And the reason why I stuck with them, and to this day, communicate with them and whatnot, it was because I knew, and there was more than one example where on a Saturday afternoon at 3:00, when I needed a contract because I found the unicorn buyer for a property that I'd just listed.
Yeah,
I was one of the only ones that they pick up the phone to.
Absolutely.
And
that's relationship, and that's trust, and it's not. And this is where I know a lot of businesses really rely on referral fees, but if you can, consider the relationships. So more recently, I think my level of thinking's evolved a little bit, but I don't always, as we were talking about how important the gut is, we don't always get it right first time. And in my world now tends to be, as I kind of alluded to before, I'll get these little signs and I'll get these little things that'll make me go, oh, that doesn't feel quite right. Oh, what's that? And at times I'll be like, oh, stop it, Kiani, you're just feeling funny, or you're feeling anxious, or you're feeling nervous. Just, ignore it, push it down, push it down, push it down. And the more I do that and the longer I ignore it, I will have something massive, like smack me in the face. And I'll be like, whoa, universe, if you were trying to tell me something, you could have done it a little bit more subtly. When in actual fact, there'd been like 45 signs before then. I just ignored the shit out of them because I didn't feel like taking control or doing the right thing, or, things like that. And I think for me, that shows up a lot with the personal relationships, because we tend to be a lot more, I know that I am a lot more forgiving and a lot more giving when it comes to second chances and things like that, when the relationships are personal. And sometimes it is really, really hard to let personal relationships go, because we've put time and effort. Like that person is our a part of our family. And as we talk about our circle, it's, that's a really sacred place to be in. And sometimes it does take multiple signs and then maybe a big fat smack in the head to realize that something needs to change. And I guess now it's not so much of someone does something to upset me. It's something doesn't feel quite right. There's a disjointment or a disconnection in our values, in their tone, in their body language. There's something that's put me off. So it now is a little bit more, as you spoke about those nonverbal cues, they are critical and they can tell you more than more importantly, they are more important than words a lot of the time. So yeah, I guess now it's a little bit more in line with the signs and how I feel, and then A lot of the time it presents itself in my body. So I will have a sore shoulder if I'm carrying someone, or my lower back will go if I'm feeling unsupported, or like it's super crazy kind of stuff. But
That's a little bit weird, I'm not going to lie. But maybe I should be paying more attention to my aches, and instead of just thinking, geez, Andy, you've not done any stretching for the last God knows how long. Maybe it's because I am shouldering the burden of something that I shouldn't be shouldering, perhaps. Maybe that's the body telling me something that I didn't even realize. So we'll put that in the moon basket, and we'll unpack that one at a later date, I reckon. And what I wanted to ask you with regards to your ambitious side is, because I'm sure there'll be a whole bunch of people that are listening to this that are really wanting to crack on and go better and go to the next level, to coin a very, very cliche phrase. But when you are in a situation, or when you feel that you are ready to go to that next stage of your career, your life, your business, so on and so forth, how do you go about finding people, or, because you are incredible at this. Like just the other day, Gang, when we were having a bit of a chat about potential guests for this show, right? And she just casually just blurted out a few names. I was like, what the fuck? So how do you go about, I don't want to say upgrading your circle of influence, but how do you go about that, reaching out to that next level that you want to reach, that you want to get to yourself?
It's a good question, but it's going to be a really fucking frustrating answer, because it all starts within you. Like every time I elevate the way that I think about myself, the way I see myself, the way that I behave, and this comes back to the comments I was making before about showing up. It's something like BNI. I have very high expectations on myself, but I don't do it from a point of thinking that they're unattainable or setting myself up to fail or anything like that. They're quite small things, but every time I take my thinking and my doing and my being to another level, it attracts a different energy and a different kind of human. When I go, right, I've got this plan in my business, this is what I'm going to put in, this is what I'm going to get out of it, this is how I'm going to make it work, this is how I'm going to contribute, this is everything. That is what I'm putting my energy into. Then I start to try and just have catch-ups with people with no intention of, finding anything other than just good people. And you'll notice the people that you tend to gravitate towards you, the people that want to help, the people that you want to help, all just shifts and change as you shift and change. If you're sitting in your little corner office every single day going, life shit, this is terrible, this is shit, but I want to go and meet Michael Jordan, do you think anyone that looks at you, unless they maybe felt a bit sorry for you, was going to get you a chance to go and meet Michael Jordan? And I mean, it's a very extreme example, but on a simplistic level, if you were sitting in your corner office going, right, this is great, I'm here right now, what do I do next? How do I achieve? Who do I talk to? Let's go and speak to the people that we've got currently and go, right, you're doing this, X, Y, and Z. How did you do that? I'm really interested in that. How do I learn about that? So upgrading your knowledge, upgrading your learning, upgrading your thinking, look at those people that you want to be like and watch how they do it. We're so lucky since COVID. Some of the apps, like I'm watching a Richard Branson masterclass at the moment on the app called Masterclass. And he tells you how he set up Virgin Records, how he set up Virgin Airlines, what his thought process was, what his mentality was. And like, that's who I'm wanting to learn from at the moment. So when I'm upgrading my level of thinking and leaning towards Richard Branson, I'm not expecting to meet Richard Branson, but I'm going to be attracting and leaning into people because I'm going to be having conversations with them at such a different level, talking about different things that will lead me in the right trajectory to the right pond with the right people. And just quickly on that little room thing, it's a little thing where if you are the smartest person in the room, I know it'll feel great and your ego will love it, but you're in the wrong room. If you are in a room where you are the smartest, you're in the wrong room. Get out of that room, go and find people that are smarter than you and start hanging around with them. That is how you upgrade your thinking. And yes, you might feel a little out of place for a little while. You'll be a little fish in a big pond, but that is okay. The value that you can give and learn and receive and contribute, mate, that is what you're after. That is the holy grail.
It really is. I think for me, because this I've found challenging. I know that you have, Kiani, at various points in your life and your career. And there'll be a whole bunch of people will be like, well, all right, well, that's great. I've got to be what I want to be. And that whole law of attraction thing.
Your mindset, we spoke about that, remember?
We did, but easier said than done, right? It really is easier said than done. I think
if it was easy, everybody would do it.
True. Very, very true.
This is why 2% of all businesses turn over more than $1 million a year. 2%.
When you think about how many businesses are kicking around, right, gang? If you can't remember, go revisit that one of our first episodes where Kiani rattled off some stats that would really, really frighten you, right? And this, don't get us wrong, this podcast is not about making you into a millionaire, right? At the end of the day, one of our upcoming podcasts is going to be around, defining success to a much greater extent. I think we'll do that from a personal point of view, and which will probably shed a bit of light on a few things. And as I've mentioned before, I'm not a fan of the law of attraction because I think people just sit there and go hum and listen to podcasts like this thinking that that's going to do it for them, right? I reckon probably what you mentioned there that I think is really one of the easier little unlocks to this is the information that you consume. Now, you don't have to go get the Richard Branson masterclass thing and automatically learn every single bit of that and then think that you're going to become Richard Branson. The way I see it is I'll consume something not in the thought of, right, I'm going to learn all of this and it's going to instantly upgrade me. But even if I just take on one bit of something that I've been listening to, or for example, if I'm really struggling with my vocabulary to a certain extent, right? One of my go-tos, which is really odd, but one of my go-tos is Russell Brand, because
Love him.
He might be a bit out there and a bit weird, and he might be a little bit sort of tin hat for those of you that aren't of that sort of mindset. But at the same time, what he does do is the way that he puts his message across, the way that he converses with people and interviews people. He's one of the most eloquent guys you're ever likely to listen to in mainstream media. He just uses some massive words at times, and every so often I do think that he's just made a word up, and sometimes he has. But the way that he puts it out there, the way that he broadcasts it, he's just so backable, right? So when you talk about circles of influence, I think part of that circle has to be the energy, the information that you are bringing into yourself as well. I think that's really critical. And if you're going to educate yourselves, for example, there's at the time of recording this, there is a course, like an academy type thing that's going on up in Queensland, and the vibe that's going on in that course, in my personal opinion, is not really one that's overly healthy. It's all about transactional. It's all about getting more numbers, getting more deals, which works to a degree, but it's not going to help to grow you as a human being. It's not going to help to grow you as a professional human in this game of real estate, let alone any other game in business. What other knowledge are you consuming right now? Might as well ask the question.
I get a lot, funnily enough, from Instagram. Like if you search the right algorithms and you search, a lot of the work I do is around mindset. So observing the thoughts that we have, and it's almost like the breadcrumb trail, and going, oh, we had that thought. That's a negative thought. Why did I have that thought? What's that thought linked to? I'm aware of that thought now. Maybe it won't come back again. Or understanding, as we spoke about, the vibe that you put out. So I'm falling through. I feel like I'm learning a lot more about how our emotions reflect, and then take it back to trauma responses, and how is your trauma presenting in your everyday life from when you were a child and had no control over what happened to you or for you or whatever it might be. So I'm going down the personal psychology, but also the personal responsibility track, so that when those moments, and they do come back, as I spoke about before, that victim mentality, lack, scarcity, why is it there? How can I help it? And then what can I do as a safeguard to make sure that I'm not projecting that onto others, because that's not theirs, that's mine. And then what can I do to be a better person? I can't change today and I can't change yesterday, but I can change tomorrow. So
that makes total sense. I really, really like that. And please follow Kiani, by the way, because as well as a lot of the professional stuff, she's been very, very open about her trip with spirituality and whatnot. And you know, it's one of the things. It's one of the things that sort of connected us to a greater extent, right? It was my intrigue about all this moon stuff.
Which we had a full moon the other night. I hope you did your lesson.
Yep, I should. Yep, promise I did.
I'll remind you next time, don't worry.
I promise I did.
Just before we wrap up, I just wanted to mention like something, for instance, with the Richard Branson stuff. So for me, it's a very long, I think it's a couple of hours, this masterclass in different sessions. And as I was listening along and listening, everything that man says is interesting, and he's such a humble individual. But the thing that resonated for me, which might help kind of put a little bit of insight into where my brain's currently at, he told this story about how he had this dream to make sure that he was the first person in the world, or his company was the first company in the world, to release planes that had TVs in the back of the seat. He said back in these days, there was like 4 TVs on the entire plane, all playing the same movie over and over again. There was no entertainment. So he introduced, through his record label, he would get entertainers on the planes, and they were singing and dancing in the aisles, and him himself was pouring champagne and talking to people and making jokes. And like, that's the kind of human that he is. So he had this, he's like, I know what needs to come next. I know I need to get these TVs in these seats. I just don't know how I'm going to do it. And then after a while, he ended up having 7 planes, 7 Boeing 747s, I think they were, which was a lot, but nowhere near as big as British Airways was killing it. There was some big disputes between the two of them as well, but off topic. But anyway, he said, I need to get TVs into the back seat of every single seat on all 7 of my planes. So he went to the bank, he applied for the loan. He said, all right, I need a $10 million loan. I'm going to be the first ever in the world to do this. People will want to fly. My money will be paid back, blah, blah, blah. Full business plan, business pitch, everything. The bank turned around and said, no, Mr. Branson, we are not going to lend you $10 million to do this. We're sorry. So for months, he was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Trying to figure out how he was going to make it work. And then one night in the middle of the night, he's like, staring at the ceiling as you do in these bloody stories. And he thought to himself, he's like, right, I'm going to call Boeing right now. And wherever he was, it was like midnight where he was and during the day where they were. And he called them. He's like, I'd like to speak to whoever it was that was head of sales. He goes, right, my name's Richard Branson. I would like to purchase 10 Boeing 747 planes from me. And they were like, oh, Mr. Branson, no one's made a purchase of this size before, because acquiring planes was like 1 or 2 at a time. And they turned around to him and said, how can we help you? We'd definitely be able to facilitate this. And he said, great. What you're going to do for me is you are also going to include that every single one of your seats has a TV in the back of the seat. And they said, oh, of course, Mr. Branson, no worries, we can make that happen. So he went to the bank the next day with his new business proposal to purchase 10 planes for $2 billion, and the bank said yes.
Wow.
So how awesome is that to think about? And this is where, like, Tony Robbins talks about it as well. And again, Tony Robbins, I've done all of his classes. He said one of his mates came to him and goes, Tony, I've got a shop, doing really well. I want to open a second shop, but I'm really struggling with how to do it and how to get the cash flow and how to get the finance, blah, blah, blah. And Tony turns and goes, mate, don't worry about opening one more shop. Figure out how to open 10. When you can open 10 shops, one shop's going to be a piece of cake. So it's that level of mindset that I gravitate towards. And that Richard Branson story, I reckon I've told to about 15 different people since, and I've only been watched it 2 weeks ago. But it's that kind of thinking that makes me get excited, which then I share with other people. And that's what I'm putting out, and that's then for what naturally comes back again. So
you're spot on, and you don't have to go out and actually meet some of these people, although there are some incredible people that you could meet, right, if you wanted to level up a little bit. But just having that information play around you, right, and it's just such a benefit to your own psyche, and then that transfers into the energy that you put out because of the level of internal fire that is burning within inside you to really go out and upgrade your business or your life or whatever the case may be. Now, before I let you go, Kate, we've got there's one last little bit I wanted to quickly chat about. You got an exercise called a little ray of sunshine. Explain that one to us, because since you put it on the little run sheet, I've had no idea what it's meant.
Well, I didn't share it with you because I'm hoping that you'll learn something too, but I'm sure you probably either or don't need to. But this is an exercise that I did when I first started my business, and I did it through BNI, which is Business Network International, that networking group we were talking about. And the purpose of it really helps you as a business owner understand who are the influential players in your space, who are the people, not from a relationship perspective, but from a business perspective, who should I be speaking to? And then those are the people too who could then introduce you to your next level of influence, who would, again, potentially bring clients back through. So the whole point of the little ray of sunshine is about identifying, I believe we've got kind of 3 rings to our networking circle. Our ideal client is the first ring. The second ring is our immediate referral partners. The third, client referral partners. Then the third ring is the extended network that we may not have a direct link to, but can help along the way. So the premise of the little ray of sunshine is you're a circle on a page, and in the middle of that circle, you choose one ideal client. So for me, that would be a purchaser or a home buyer. So in there, I would write home buyer. And then around the outside, you draw your rays of sunshine, like a sun, like an old stick figure sun. And at the end of each one of those rays of sunshine, you would write your ideal referral partner. So who, and this is where it goes, from the outside in, who would be that person that would introduce me to a home buyer? So in my world, it would be a real estate agent, a mortgage broker, a buyer's advocate, an accountant, a financial planner, who else? A family lawyer, owner's corporation manager, and then a property manager. They would be kind of my main rays of sunshine. And then if you extend that out one more level and go, okay, so use the real estate agent as an example. So if a real estate agent is going to get me my client, my ideal client, then that is a perfect 1-tier level of a connection for me, because that agent is going to be the person that I connect with, make a relationship with, clients come back. The second level out, you then again look from the outside level in. Who is going to refer a real estate agent who will then refer to me? So it becomes a little bit of a 2-tiered approach, but the further you can get that little ray of sunshine out, I guarantee you the thing that you will realize is that every single person on the face of this planet can potentially bring you in your ideal client. Now, your first ring is going to be quick and fast because they're going to be the relationship. So they're the people that you want to hold really near and dear. But the point of doing it, and the little premise to all of this, is that every single person that you meet in your journey of life on the face of this planet could potentially be your customer. So when we are talking about where your vibe attracts your tribe and where attention goes, energy flows, if we start believing that the impression that we leave on everybody could potentially bring it back to us, obviously karma, we all know what karma is, that may help you. Just, if there's one thing that you need to trigger your mindset to be like, she's talking rubbish, think about it that way. Every single person you meet could be your customer. But if you do this little ray of sunshine and you start being really strategic, even LinkedIn, like go and sit down and the main rays of sunshine, jump on LinkedIn and add 20 of each of them. Your network then instantly times 10 doubles or triples or whatever it might be. But if you are really strategic in your thinking and you meet the right people, not everyone will be your person. Out of 5 real estate agents, you might gel with 2. Who knows? But those 2 may be enough to give you 10 clients, and that's 10 clients you didn't have before. So this exercise was really beneficial for me because it helped me identify who was going to bring me my ideal referral partner, and then where I was going to find those referral partners. And that's when we can lean on our current network to introduce us to our outer network, because warm leads are always better than cold.
I hope you got all that down, gang. And if you haven't, just rewind over the last sort of 3-4 minutes and just replay that again and do the exercise yourself, because it is a tremendous way of doing a couple of things. One, identifying key relationships that might be missing in your business, your organization, or what it is that you want to achieve. But as well as that, I think one of the critical pieces of that, and this sort of stuff really helped me with my mentality around being who I am 100% of the time. Because what I found was that when I was trying to be a real estate agent, I would do my own heading, right? But when I was who I was 100% of the time, the amount of business that I would pick up from the fruit and veg aisle of Coles, right? Or stupid places like that, because I didn't have to hide who I was, and therefore that attracted people to me from a business point of view, purely based on the fact that they knew what they were going to get when they said hello. And I think that exercise really brings that into focus a heck of a lot more, and it helps you to go back and identify how you want to be defined as a business and as a person within that business. Yeah. Tremendous exercise on so many levels.
And this is an exercise too, when you are ready to level up, go back and have a look at the first one you did and the level that the business of the referral partner that you were looking for. Then look for the level of the business of the next referral partner, because as your business evolves, your referral partners will need to evolve as well.
Absolutely, they will, because like what we said earlier on, gang, sometimes it's not like your circle of influence needs upgrading or replacing or whatever. You don't just bin people as and when you've finished using them for all they're worth, but sometimes the capacity means that you need to go to the next level in order to satisfy the direction that your business has gone in. And that is not a bad thing, gang. That is not a bad thing at all, as long as, and this is my own personal belief, I'm sure Key shares this with me, as long as you don't just completely bin the ones that helped you get to that position in the first place.
Never forget where you came from. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that comes back to those anchors, those people that really know who you are, right? Hey, look, Kiani, thank you so much. I tell you what, you've been a ray of sunshine to me this episode. Bang! Damn, yeah. Got it. Managed to bring it full circle. Wonderful stuff. Team, I'm sure you got plenty of value out of that, as did I. If you do have any questions following on from that, please hit us up on DM on our Instagram page. If you have any struggles with this, if you have any challenges, or if it's invoked any more questions within you, then please reach out to us on the Beauty and the Pom Instagram page. We'd love to hear from you, from Kiani and myself, the Beauty and the Pom. Stay safe, healthy, happy, gang, and we'll speak to you next time.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us. We are very grateful for your time, and we really hope that we've provided some value.
Follow us on Instagram if you've liked what you've heard, and if you have anything that you want us to talk about, things that might have been bugging you but you've not quite had the bottle to really bring it out into the open, send us a DM and we'll happily bring it to the table.